glad you could join us.
Thanks. Yeah, just finished with my day, so time to relax and listen in.
Cool.
All right.
I also saw Rolling Crow Justin. I believe that's a new name. Hello, Justin.
Hey.
Yo. Cool. Now I want to push for just a few more minutes because people come a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just have a few people show up. Yeah. But thanks for coming. We do have just for the guys who just showed up, we do have a guest speaker today, Mr. Jordan Klink. Podank is his Discord name.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
All right.
Hey, how's it going, Gunnar? Actually, on that note, just a bit of bookkeeping. Gunnar Clovis will be relinquishing his position as the vice president of this club because he's gone and gotten himself a real job.
Congrats.
One moment.
So, just a moment on that. Thank you so much, Gunnar, for all your hard work, dedication, and inspiration, because you inspired me to keep running this club, and you inspired a lot of people to join. I'm pretty sure, like, some people in this room have you to thank for getting them connected.
Circa 12 months ago. I haven't done much in the last.
Sure.
But yeah, no, thank you. I will always be here. Well, I won't always be in the chat. I'm pretty hard to pin down, but I'm always happy to help in any whatever way I can as a resource. Need an extra pair of hands, and as I mentioned, I'm looking for ways I can try and help support Unity UNLV with my company, Galaxy Gaming. That will likely be in the future, at least until we can legally have people in the building, more than half. But yeah, no, always happy to contribute what I can. And one moment.
Cool. Well, thank you, Gunnar, and I'm sure I speak on everyone's behalf as we say thank you. So on that note, the vice president position is vacant. So if anyone's interested in filling that position, let me know, and if we need to, we'll hold an election. But otherwise, I might just appoint somebody. But hit me up if you're interested, and just a teeny bit more responsibility. Cool. Well, I think that's enough stalling for time. I think everyone who's coming is here. So, Matt.
Yeah. So, welcome everyone. Today's guest speaker is Jordan Klink. I know him from work as a coworker, but also knowing a little bit about him, he works at PlayStudios. At this moment, I will want to pass it over to him so he can introduce himself and more about what he does. So, Jordan, if you'd like to take the mic.
Yeah. So I want you guys to interrupt me as much as possible. So please feel free.
You got it.
Talking to begin with. So, but yeah, I want to start with my background first. Actually from Modesto, California, which is like a really podunk little town, no pun intended, and basically the meth lab and almond orchard capital of the world. It's quite a combo. Anyways, went to college at UC Berkeley over in the Bay Area, and I was looking for a lot of jobs there originally, but my girlfriend at the time, was now my wife, lived in Las Vegas, and I found a small job on Craigslist of all places.
Whoa.
Yeah, with Vegas.Craigslist.com, like back in the day, when it was more popular, at a smaller place called Sunstorm. And that's how I got my foot in the door, at least in the mobile gaming world. But yeah, kind of a big jump, leap of faith. But one thing I forgot to mention is that I don't know how many of you guys are single, but I actually met her online playing Team Fortress 2.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a match made in heaven.
It really was. No joke.
I got to ask though, what roles were you guys playing?
Yeah, it was the perfect match because I was always played medic and she always played pyro or like soldier. So
Hey,
I just followed her around, chasing after her, chasing after her.
And she's like, I need heals. And you're like, I don't get it. Your health is full. What do you need me around for?
Exactly.
She just likes your company.
Oh yeah, man. It was great. So yeah. I don't know if that's like a popular thing, but hey, if you keep playing online games, maybe you'll find somebody, maybe not. It's not, don't lose hope, right? It can be hard though, but worked out for me anyways. So Sunstorm was like super tiny. Like when I first joined, it was only like 3 people, it's me and 2 other guys, and we made like super casual toy-based games, really. So like all kids focused. We started out doing like a cookie maker game and a ice cream maker game, and like those took off so well. We turned makers into like an assembly line. It's like we literally set up like some base classes, and then we just pumped the heck out of it, like with like an assembly line where all we had to do was like swap out the art. So after we did those 2, we did donut maker, s'mores maker, icy maker, which was licensed. Like it just, I mean, I had like a poster, and after you count up like all the app icons on this thing, like our entire collection, we had like 80 games at one point.
Whoa.
80 apps live,
dang.
which was a huge pain to manage. Like, I don't know how many of you guys like follow like the app scene, but like the hyper casual market is like super strong now, where they don't update games. They just pump one game out, it's a hit, and then they pump out the next game. They like never update them.
Yeah.
That's how we started out, and then like that kind of died when like bigger names like Disney got in, because this was back in 2011, 2012, like when iPhone 2 came out.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of died, but now it's coming back. Hyper casual toys.
So what's your company's name again?
So yeah, it was called Sunstorm Interactive,
Sunstorm.
and it was actually originally not even in apps. Like you guys might have heard of it, or maybe not, but I'm sure you guys heard of Deer Hunter.
Yeah,
the arcade game.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so they originally, if you like do a Wikipedia search, they're from Indianapolis in like the 90s. So they did Deer Hunter, and then they did some like a Shadow Warrior expansion, and then they also made Duke Nukem Manhattan Project, which was like totally different from baking cookies for kids, right?
A bit.
Yeah, so kind of a 180, but the guy, his name's Tony Campiti, the owner. He had basically liquidated everything back then, made as much money as he could, and then once he saw the iPhone, he's like, man, this is the next big thing. So he relaunched the company. But then so after that was a couple buyouts. We got bought out by a company in Cleveland. We rebranded to Sunstorm Games. Not a big name change. Did pretty good. We grew to like 30 people. Got bought out again by Tabtail, which is now Crazy Labs, which their headquarters in Israel, and they're really huge. They did like Sausage Run and a lot of these like gymnastics type games. Still kids focused, but anyways, they eventually, once they bought us out, they eventually closes down. Like the mobile space is like super brutal. I don't know how many of you guys are interested in apps. That's like all I do, by the way, is apps. It's like they literally just bought us just for the audience. Like they didn't really want anything else, so they let everybody go after 6 to 8 months. Then I was at PlayStudios, which it was not. I mean, probably my least favorite job. I actually quit PlayStudios like last September because I wasn't on like the games team. I was on like the support tools team. Which
Did you not like being on the tools team?
no, not at all. I mean, I do like helping out, I mean, I'm a TF2 medic at heart, right? So I try to be selfless, don't need to be front and center, but it was just super dysfunctional. Like as much as I love a lot of the people there, it was like PlayStudios. They do like the My Vegas apps, like the huge slot casino games, and like they had started up a tools team in Vegas, literally last. Oh gosh, actually no, I guess it was a year and a half ago, but it was brand new, even though PlayStudios has been around since 2012, and like. So it was like a startup within a bigger company, and it was just not managed well, and it was more the management style than the actual work I was doing, right? So, but what I'm doing now is like I love it. So I guess I didn't update my resume for you, Matt, but I'm at a place called Puzzle Nation now, and I freaking love it. It's so great because it's kind of back to my roots where. Even though Puzzle Nation is owned by a company called Penny Dell, which makes like those crossword books you see in like the drugstores and like Target sometimes, you know, like or like the word search, you know, like jumbo word searches that are like 80 pages of like you know talking about like old school stuff. Like there's like 100 people doing that, but it's literally just 3 of us in this app division. So it's like the team size I'm used to, super tiny, but there's no oversight because like it's great. Like the people that make like the publication, the books and stuff are like the average age there has got to be like 65. Everybody's like so old, and puzzle books in general is an old business. So as long as we're doing well, making money, they don't care what we're doing. So
nice.
Yeah. And it's fully remote. Like they're in Connecticut. I'm here in Vegas still. And it's just like, yeah, I love it. Let's see. Other than, I mean, that's like kind of a long background, but that's the gist of it. As I said before, like I've been doing pretty much only apps, and but it wasn't always Unity. Like I started out doing like native.
Native?
Yeah, like native iOS and native Android, like back in 2011. Because I don't know when Unity actually started, but we didn't switch to Unity till like mid 2012. So like, did anybody ever start doing like Unity 3 or Unity 4 here?
Can't
I
say.
started after 5.
But didn't really.
At 5?
Yeah.
5's still pretty good. Like, but if you started before like the year they switched to the year based system, you know, like 2018, 2019, that's pretty old school, at least in the Unity world. But yeah, we switched in because like, man, has anybody made an app either or interested in apps? A little bit.
I make a lot of things for the mobile platform, but I don't publish on the app stores. I do casino games, so it's mainly pitching to execs with like little game on the iPad for them.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, it's just cross-platform in general, right? So like when we're doing native, I got to make the game in iPhone on Xcode, and then you got to remake the entire thing in Android Studio for.
Oh gosh.
It was just. We found out very quickly, especially with a catalog of 80 apps, right? Like we got to do multi-platform Unity. So like that switch was like heaven sent.
So what would you say would be like some of the most important things when making apps, I guess, if you had to like start thinking of an idea to get working on it, on something?
Yes, that's a good question. I guess it depends too. Is you talking about specifically an app or specifically a game?
Just like a phone app in general. I've always been interested in maybe making one just to like experiment with. And like, how do you approach making one, I guess?
Right. So with apps, I mean, the first thing you want to do is figure out your audience, especially right now because it's so crowded. You want to, I mean, you can either try to like attack somebody else's audience, or you can try to find your own niche and like something that hasn't been done before, which is admittedly pretty hard now because it's been like 10 years since the App Store came out. But regardless, I mean, if you find if you do come with an idea, like you really want to put your mindset in through the eyes of your consumer. So we set up a lot of time in the beginning of projects where we come up with user personas, they're called, and it's like we come up with a list of here's what we think our our typical user base is going to look like. So we're actually starting an app from scratch right now, and we kind of went with an office theme where it's like, okay, our most casual user, let's call her Pam, is going to play one puzzle per day, and then that's it. And maybe she'll uninstall after a week or something. And then we'll have like a Dwight type persona who's going to play the game for a year, we hope, and like spend $20 a month or something.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of just like brainstorm what you think the most common persona is going to be, and then you kind of design around it. So specifically for games, it's like, okay, if I'm a hardcore player, someone who's engaged with games easily, like a Dwight, then I try to think of, okay, what's the most valuable thing that this person's gonna want, right? Because especially mobile right now, it's all freemium, so you're thinking, as they play through the game, like what's gonna like drive them not only to keep playing but to like maybe actually spend or at least watch like a rewarded video, what have you. It's really just about coming up with valuable content and pitching it almost like a sales pitch. Like you could throw it in limited time bundles, stuff like that. But the main thing is putting your mindset or looking at your game through these personas. You know what I mean? Has anybody like done stuff like that before, like case studies or focus groups or?
Oh
No, that was a really cool idea. I've never thought about like
Yeah, it was actually.
personas. That's cool.
We don't do a whole lot of that lately, but back in the Sunstorm days when we were doing like kids games, we actually did a ton of focus groups where there was this one lady named Samantha, and her full-time job was running focus groups with other people's kids. She'd set up, I think she like borrowed like classrooms or something. I don't know where she did it at, but
Wow.
people would volunteer their kids. We'd give them like $50, whatever, and they'd go in their room, they'd play our game, and she'd write down their feedback. It was really insightful, especially with like kids, because like, none of you probably have kids. I don't have a kid either, but they say like the craziest stuff, man. Like I can tell you the best way to approach things is like put your mind in the eyes of a player, but it's so hard to do that with kids because they see things so differently.
right.
It's
I'm sure they're super critical too, or like unfiltered.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. It's
But on
brutal
that,
sometimes.
from a technical standpoint, you're trying to get feedback on the game that's not finished yet. So how do you balance like what's not in the game yet, and like trying to get information back on features that aren't finished yet?
Yeah, so that's really, really hard. But have you guys dealt with like, or what the differences between waterfall and agile?
A little bit.
So I don't know how, if this is truly accurate, but a lot of the old school game dev style was like either no structure at all, or they'd come up with this giant game designs doc and they'd kind of like hold this thing up as like the Bible. They'd make it early on, and then it'd be like untouchable. Once a design is written down in this doc, which could be like hundreds of pages, it was untouched, right, or unchanged. Mm-hmm. And that's waterfall style, where you do all the planning up front, but that is basically dead. So I guess I should try to think about what it was like being at Cal and like a student. But yeah, so more of the project management stuff, when you do eventually get like a career job, like it's all agile now, and the emphasis is on iterative development. So it's not like you go from alpha to beta to gold to launch. It's more like you just keep iterating through these things called sprints, where sprint 1, you'll focus on a feature, and then if it's actually good in the next sprint, you go on to the next feature. But if the feature sucks, then you start iterating on the same feature until it's done. And sprints are usually either 1 week to 2 weeks. So it's like a constant iterative development process if you set up your Agile in the right way. So it just depends on your project manager. But so it's not like you never really stop developing something, at least in an Agile environment, and especially in apps too, because you often do this iteration while the thing's live. So people will soft launch in Canada, Australia, and the Philippines before the game's even out. Like everybody does this like for months. Even PlayStudios, they just came out with a bingo game last week. Well, if you go to the App Store and you search for My Vegas Bingo, even though it's only been out for 1 week, click on the version history for it, and it's actually been out for 7 months in the Philippines, because that's how long they've been doing this soft launch, which is basically like a beta.
That's so smart.
Yeah. So
if I may add something, another advantage to Agile. Unfortunately, I'm very familiar with Agile because of my day job. I'm a contractor for the Air Force. It's all like Agile. But the sprints are nice because if you have a feature that sucks, you only spend a short amount of time on it, and then you can ditch that, and then you can refocus into a new direction. So keeping your cadence, they call it, keeping your work, timing going is very important with Agile. And when you have a sprint, and if everything just crashes and burns, okay, you've only wasted 2 weeks versus months before you put it in front of a user, and then they go, I hate everything about this.
Yeah, it lends a lot of adaptation, right? So you usually have a review at the end of a sprint to see like if it actually was worth doing, or typically when you do a review, you have a certain either PM or project manager that you're showing it off to, and sometimes you're actually doing a sprint with your consumer or your user base. So when I was doing tools, this was like other engineers. So if like I wrote a tool or a prototype of tool for that sprint and it just totally sucked, then exactly what you said, like we'll just nuke it and either do it from scratch or just not even do it at all. Did that answer the question? I don't even remember what the question was at this point.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
So Agile's used a lot in the industry. How do you guys like manage your do you guys use a project board, or like do you have like Scrum board or something?
Yeah, so with the PlayStudios, it was a lot more structured. We used Azure DevOps, which is Microsoft's version of a Kanban board.
Yeah.
And it was good, especially for a larger company like that. You got to have the structure. But ever since I've got this new job from Puzzle Nation, like we use a Trello board, it's just a Kanban as well. But there's no like, we don't even have sprints anymore. Like we have like vague milestones set up like months away, and we have cards that like vaguely relate to stories or features. And but yeah, maybe it's a bad example because it's 3 people and we don't care about structure, but maybe this is illuminating though, because like when I was first like looking for jobs, I wanted to work at like a AAA huge studio, and now that I had a bit more experience, man, I don't recommend it unless you're willing to deal with the structure and like the ladder and the politics. Because if you can find a smaller place, man, yeah, you can get away with anything. Like, I highly recommend it. I love smaller places.
Yeah, especially with the suits and all that. The industry about suits. The suits. Pay the investors pay for the project, and you really don't have like you're basically tied.
Yeah.
No, you don't have like the reign of pre-creativity.
Exactly. That's probably the biggest difference between like my college experience versus my career experiences. It's like you don't see just how much like red tape and politics you gotta, like how many hoops you have to jump through in the career world sometimes. Like, it's crazy. Like, at one point, the CEO of the entire company is like giving me design instructions, and he's like never even like looked at the game before. It's like, I want to tear my hair out. Crazy sometimes.
Yeah, but no, I second that about small companies. I
Mhm.
I enjoyed my work in Washington, where I was very small teams, and now with my current job, it's it's still a relatively small company, like it's 30 people total, although we have a pretty wide reach. But in product, it's just the two of us, and so I kind of get to do like whatever I want. It's pretty great.
Nice.
Yeah. That's definitely the way to go if you're asking me. But I will say the one nice thing about the bigger studios is that you can usually make crazier games. Like, there's having like a fully 3D like FPS like Call of Duty type deal or TF2, like, it's just so out of the reach of a 3-man studio typically.
Right.
But you set, honestly, this kind of goes back to the question, I forgot who asked it earlier, about like how you approach an app. Like, one of the things you really got to look at too is constraints that you have. Like, a lot of times that's just money, but constraints often is like your personnel. So we don't have a full-time artist, so a lot of the graphics we do is all procedural, or the game we're working on right now is actually, since it's not going to be out for like a year probably, we're using the new Unity UI elements, so we don't even have artists for our UI. It's all CSS based. So it's like, if you know, like, the more constraints you know about ahead of time, I mean, you can honestly, it sucks to be limited, but constraints in my mind have always been positive, because it helps you make decisions. Like, it's so dang hard to make a design decision sometimes, but hey, if you can't have like fully fledged 3D assets with normal maps and everything, then hey, makes the decision pretty easy, right? Any other I mean, I don't really have much else to talk about, but I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here. So do you want me to talk about something else, or like specific questions? Like,
Yeah.
Whatever.
So we can free this up to any like Q&A questions, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
to any of the members.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just keep launching stuff at you if no one else has anything.
I can say that the UI elements, man. if you're thinking about using it right now, don't. It's like, so in order to get the thing at all, you got to do the preview packages, which is always questionable.
Yeah.
But it's actually, I should say that the actual coding part where you're doing it in C# is not bad. Like working with it at runtime, but if you want to actually use the UI builder tool, it looks a lot like Photoshop or like an image based editor. It's so busted. Like, it's in preview package for a reason. So,
Yeah, give it time.
yeah. It's been, I don't know if anybody's been following it, but like, it's been delayed so many times. Like, it was supposed to come out last year. It's like, Unity's killing me sometimes. This will be like their third or fourth UI system. Crazy.
So you work on a small team. You said like 2 or 3 people?
Yep, there's 3 of us right now. 2 engineers and a producer/designer.
Cool. How do you guys like divvy up the work? Like, do you just kind of grab whatever's closest to you, or like do you assign, like, you do this section, you do this part, you just do the art?
Yeah, okay, so with 3 people, it's pretty easy. Anything that's like non-technical usually falls to my boss, Fred, who's the producer. The phrase he describes himself is a crap umbrella. So he shields the rest of us, the other 2 people, from all the crap from corporate, which is great because it means I have less stress. But when it comes to like the technical stuff, it depends on like the expertise of what your team looks like. I'll try to talk in more generic terms. So, for example, I have a lot of native experience because I started out doing iOS, Objective-C, and a little bit of Swift. So anytime we need like native functionality or like an iOS plugin, I mean, that naturally falls to me rather than the other guy. So he hasn't done it at all. Sometimes though, like if it's not just like, or if it's something where we have the same amount of expertise, like some bug happens, it could just be a matter of who's neck deep in some feature that if they were to like get taken off of it, they lose like velocity. Like Gunnar, I think it was Gunnar, right, that was talking about or sprint velocity. Or who was talking about sprint velocity for Agile?
That was probably me.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, like it's really hard to like context switch from when you're neck deep in something, right? Like you get into like a flow of things. So if there's a red flag that happens, usually the guy who's less busy will jump on it and try to put that fire out. Right now, I'm like the guy who's neck deep in laying a lot of foundation code for this new app. So the other guy, Russell, does the other engineering. He's usually been doing updates because we have 4 games total that are live. So a lot of live ops is like really live ops on like 4 games is almost a full-time job. So he's usually got his hand ties with that. It just depends though.
What's live ops?
Oh, it's just maintenance of a live product. Especially, it's less important with like single player games, but for like a multiplayer game or a social game, like at PlayStudios, all the My Vegas products are social. You got to have a guy like literally on call 24 hours in case someone goes down with the server or anything like that, where he can just at a moment's notice, try to bug fix it or kick the server back up.
Mm-hmm.
Really important for, especially when you're at a bigger place too, because typically you have a global audience. So like peak hours for you might actually be noon in China or Beijing or somewhere. So somebody might get a really really annoying phone call at like 3 a.m. Hey, can you restart the database? Fun. Anything else?
Have you ever had to be that guy?
I was going to be that guy. That was part of the reason why I quit PlayStudios. Like we had gotten they've been starting to just throw more and more like responsibility at us. Like originally we were doing some smaller tools for the dev team that did the gameplay. And then they moved us on to like these websites that were not public but internal facing. So our customer service people were using these to do like support tickets, those kind of websites. And then after that, it was like, okay, now you got the website, set up the database for it. Anytime the database goes down, because we got customer support people in Hong Kong, well, guess what? Somebody's got to be on call, and we're going to rotate it, and it's going to be your turn next month. I'm like, nope. See ya.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard through some dev stories that right around launch time is probably the most stressful time of the game development schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of speak to that? Like, what's your experience like? Because you've launched like sounds like over 100 games by now.
Yeah. Yeah, it can get a little crazy. I feel like crunch is a little less stressful in the mobile world, just because your projects are smaller. Like the longest project I've ever worked on was a year, but yeah, absolutely. When you're trying to like actually do the App Store submission to either the Google Play Store or the iOS Apple Store, it's pretty crazy because you set out what you think is your launch date, and you only want to go gold, and you're trying to hit that. Well, you could actually, meet that target and like submit it on like Friday or something, and maybe it goes through, maybe it doesn't, because I don't know if anybody's submitted, but Apple has really finicky guidelines sometimes where, if you have like one little setting wrong, they reject your submission, and then you got to go back to the drawing board and see what happened, like see why they rejected you. And it's like, if you actually did this and waited on a Friday, then you're so screwed, because either you got to do it that same evening, or maybe you got to work the weekend if it's urgent, or you got to push the deadline. It could be a little chaotic. This has happened a lot. Like, yes, that's why we typically, at least for me, we never submit on Fridays. We always submit on Mondays in case something does hit the fan. You have all week to like fix it. Especially like lately, like this past year, like there was a whole ordeal with sign-in with Apple, where every single game that needed to be updated or submitted had to support sign-in with Apple if it was multiplayer. So most of the time, you log into an MMO or like, I don't know, Epic Games. You got an Epic Games account. You got a WoW account. You have your own account system, right? Well, everything that's on the App Store now has to also support Apple account with this new protocol they made. And that blew up everybody's timelines, because it was a huge pain in the butt to add that in like retroactively, because usually these things are tied into your own database and backend system to only work that way. Like, in the ideal world, you make an interface and it doesn't matter what your backend is, but it's not how it always works. You can get some pretty tight coupling. Yeah, that screwed a lot of people over. And then just this month, well, actually next month, they're doing the new iOS 14.5, where they're really cracking down on privacy. So Facebook is scrambling to come up with a new ad system and event system for analytics that conforms to these new protocols, where we can't track you between devices. So there's tons of privacy issues right now. I don't know if you've heard of GDPR in Europe, but they've already started it months ago. There's COPA compliance, where you can't track anything for kids. So like a lot of fine lines you can't cross, and if you break anything, Apple lets you know about it, and you got to resubmit, and it sucks.
Well, you also mentioned Epic Games, and after the whole Fortnite debacle, I don't think there's going to be any more Epic Games on the Apple Store anytime soon. Or if there is, it's going to be even more through the cheese grinder to get in there, because they are royally pissed at how they tried to get around them.
Oh yeah, like
I believe Tim Sweeney is trying. In my opinion, this is all based on my opinion. I believe Tim Sweeney is trying to forcefully make the Epic Games Store, it's challenging Steam and other store platforms. I don't think exclusivity is not good. I mean, that's a problem with that the customers are, having an argument about, saying like, yeah, like exclusivity is like harming the market, putting hard time for the customers, and including privacy too, because you gotta make more and more accounts, more DRM layer over another DRM layer, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's almost like the console wars all over again, but it's like the platform wars. Like even on PC, right? It used to just be Steam for a long time, and now there's EA Origin and Epic.
When Steam was new, people were also angry that Steam saying like, yeah, our privacy is at risk. We're not allowing Valve to spy on us, etc., etc. And now here we are. Steam is one of the top platform, and the devs are saying like, yeah, like Valve's taking 30% of our cut, which we're not happy about it, and Epic Games, stepped in saying like 12.30. I can't really remember the accurate cut number.
It kept changing. It was
Yeah.
for a while, and it also was like eaten by the Unreal game engine percentage if you were building with Unreal. And then they axed that. Epic, frankly, just doesn't care because they make so much money through Fortnite. It's patently ridiculous, and so they keep lowering all the premiums and the royalty splits and everything. So I don't know what it is now.
Well, yeah, they're completely dependent on Fortnite, and that is their only problem. If Fortnite falls, then it's over for Epic. They gotta like sit down and figure something out.
They got along. They existed before Fortnite. Fortnite has just skyrocketed them into. They have so much extra cash now that they can start all these alternate revenue streams. And I mean, generally, a new business isn't profitable for several years. The Epic Games Store is still very much in its early days, so I think they're plenty comfortable. They got so much in their coffers. Time to turn it all around because it's early goings. But Jordan, you were talking about crunch earlier. How much, in your experience, do you crunch in the mobile space still?
The most I've ever crunched was honestly probably just 2 weeks, where I was working like 13-hour days, probably, like 7 to 8-ish around there. But it's really rare, at least from my background, just because the development cycle is so short, as I mentioned before, and there's just shorter sprints, and when everything's iterative and you soft launch and you focus group test, and it's like you go through so many of these hoops early on, to make sure that things are on target and you're making a game that you almost know in advance how successful it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Usually, just doing all those extra steps of like planning and project management, like almost like buys you some time and on the engineering side. It's like, hey, when they're doing focus groups, guess what? I'm free to fix some bugs in advance before something blows up down the road. So it's definitely not that bad. Like I probably, if you like add up all the days I've crunched over my 10-year career, honestly, it's probably, it's easily less than 3 months. Might even be just 2 months, like total. Mm-hmm. Which I know some like AAA places, they'll make you crunch for 2 months on one project, so it's a lot better. Are you guys is everybody here engineer or like artist, like, or the Unity generalists, or what's the most prevalent?
Yes.
All the above.
It's a mix of all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my title is game designer, so I mainly do design, R&D, but I come from a low-level software engineering background, so I do a lot of implement everything I design too, generally.
Okay, that's cool. I'm definitely, at a small place, like you kind of got to do a lot of everything, but I'm definitely focused on the engineering side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I did want to say one.
Oh, sorry. I think pretty much everyone in here is codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know how prevalent it is, but the one thing that blew my mind and has really changed how I coded when I switched from really just Java and JavaScript and even Objective C and native iOS is how differently you think when you have this component based system, almost completely tailored around the decorator pattern, where you got like your chassis or your scaffold as the game object, and then you just start tacking things on. So like one thing I've really tried to stick to is like what's it called, the single purpose functions. What is it? Single design principle, where like you write a script and it only does like one thing, or it does as little as possible, right? So you can like combine things and mix and match, and like I don't know.
It's like singleton pattern or something.
No, like
solid principles.
The solid. That's it. Thank you. Yes, that has been like really crucial, at least in the growth of my engineering skills. Because I've seen a lot of times where a lot of my coworkers and even places we contract work out to, is like we had a lot of studios in India like contract games for us, and like the code I looked at sometimes, man, where like you get a script file and it's thousands of lines long, or you have like just one giant controller script that does like all the things. Like, please don't do that. Please split things up.
Yeah.
Like
That's
the more. Go ahead.
Oh no, never mind.
Just the more you can like break things down, like the more you can reuse. And a lot of things I tell like the students I'm coaching on Mondays and Thursdays, I tell them like the ideal world or the ideal game is a game that's only one line of code, because you know exactly where the bugs are. Right. If it was broken. But sadly, you can't always do that. But yeah,
I don't know. I can fit a lot on one line.
Yeah, just keep inlining forever. Semicolons on semicolons.
Just lambdas inside of lambdas.
The single script for a single purpose methodology also kind of mirrors sort of the microservices approach that a lot of companies are going nowadays, where ideally your entire app is in the cloud and it's literally thousands of tiny scripts. And if I want to change just the font on the header of the whole site, that's one script I pull down, make a tiny change, a tiny push, and now I've affected change in the right way without having to rebuild a whole database or take something down. It's live all the time. So having these tiny little pieces do their job, a giant school of fish, they're all tiny fish, but together they're a formidable force.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it really does save you in terms of like downtime, and you can update something on the fly like that without anybody noticing. At PlayStudios, our entire backend tech stack was all microservice based, where it wasn't like super micro. I'd say it's like it was all the same principle. So we had like an account based microservice. We had a timing based microservice. We had I don't even remember, but it's becoming super prevalent now. So I don't know how many of you guys like are how much the back end of games and server appeals to some of you, but like Node.js was like vital to my PlayStudios career, because we were doing the JavaScript on the front end and the back end both, and it's just like it's super clean. I love Node.js. I don't hardly use it anymore, but for microservices, it was great. It's also really easy too, because it's single threaded and it's all asynchronous. So if you're already doing coroutines or threads, like it's really easy to transition to.
Yes.
How often do you have to learn a new language or a new tool set?
Not that often. At least not at like my purely like dev jobs. So at Sunstorm and Tactile and what I'm doing now at Puzzle Nation, it's pretty honed in on pretty much Unity, and every once in a while I'll still make a plugin. But at PlayStudios, because we were like on a support team that was kind of like anything non-game related, they threw at us. Like we're almost at like odd jobs kind of. That was quite a bit. So I had never done CSS or JavaScript before I got that job, which I'm amazed they even hired me because of that reason. that was what they were looking for, but they thought like, oh, since he has a Unity background, maybe he'll be able to interface with the game studios better. But I don't know. But there it was like I would learn something new like every 3 or 4 weeks. It was a lot of stuff. So I mean, I had never done like front end or back end JavaScript. I had never done. I had done some database work in college, but I hadn't touched it then. So it was like 8 years rusty. I had to pick that up again. I had to learn a migration. So I don't know if anyone knows what an ETL is, extract, transform, load. I had to do that because we were moving data around from AWS to Snowflake. Had to learn how Node.js streams work so I could pipeline all that stuff. It didn't take forever. By the way, they have like 100 terabytes of player data, and to move all of that originally it was going to take 37 days to move 100 terabytes, which was horrendously slow. Like, oh man. But I had basically iterated on that, optimized the crap out of it to the point where it only took 8 hours after that. So that felt pretty nice. From 37 days to not even one.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of learning then. It just depends on like the position you have and also the seniority. So I was one of the more senior guys at PlayStudios. So if nobody knew anything, they'd throw it to me. It's actually a good point. I didn't even talk about that. Like literally every job I've had so far has been like a lead job. Even the first job I had, because literally there's 3 of us. So I'd always been like kind of like a not like manager, but when you're a lead engineer, you kind of do like 33% manage, or even half manage, half code. Like this job I have now is like the first time job where I'm just the lowest level guy now. All I do is code, and I actually kind of love it. It's way less stressful.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, and it lets me focus more, on just the engineering world. Like you can get caught up in meetings and product people, and it just like really throws you out of your rhythm. And depending on how poorly the meeting goes, can really ruin your entire day. I've been in some really bad meetings, man. Yeah.
I was supposed to have a really stressful meeting today with the CEO, but that got canceled.
Oh, lucky. Canceled or postponed? Postponed, man.
Because my boss is on vacation with his kids this week, so it's on next Monday instead.
Good luck. Usually when that happens, it's like it makes it worse for me because I have this like dark cloud over my head just looming until it's finally over. Like, I just want to get it over with.
Strategy meeting.
Yeah.
Talking about deep fakes and one-to-many games. It's going to be an interesting meeting. We're not sure how it's going to go.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much. Thanks again for giving us your time, and thanks for chatting with us, answering all our questions, and thanks for inspiring us. I really appreciate you coming.
Oh, yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
For sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I don't know if we
so
do
much.
like rounds of applause. I don't know how to do this in Discord, but like just bang on your keyboard a whole bunch.
Put some clapping emojis in general.
Yeah, and get some clap emojis.
Yeah.
But cool. All right, guys. Thanks again for coming, and thanks again, Jordan. Remember to do the asset shuffles because we have another. We have a whole week to do them. So asset shuffles, just small little, put something, put just as much as you'd like to put into the game, and then show it off next week.
And Jordan, if you'd like to join us for that, maybe see what some of the members have made, and we could all discuss it, maybe.
And when's the next meeting?
So next week, Monday, 6:00. we'll do like a normal meeting. But then actually the week after that, Matt Mentalic 3D will be the next guest speaker. So
Very cool.
He popped in just for a preview to see what it's all about. But yeah, Jordan, feel free. You know, if, you've got an invite to the server, so if you ever want to just pop in and see what's up and see what we're working on, you know, the invitation's there.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Was there anything else that we needed to bring up or say?
Just keep working. Yeah.
Yeah, do good work. Make games, but also remember to play them.
Yep. Yep.
All right, guys.
Also, don't remember to.
Yeah,
What's up,
find
Bill?
your spouse on TF2.
Oh yeah, make me heal everybody. You never know.
Keep playing video games.
Yes.
Recharge your teammates.
That's right.
Yep.
Well,
Alright.
what were you gonna say?
Oh, also remember to fill out the introduction form. It's pinned in announcements, so you can just click on the link and just fill out the form whenever.
Oh yes, please. If you haven't already, we would like some more information. Cool. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for coming.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.